what we find in the world today, when we read all the things about who are the kind of people that you want to be, or what kind of business, or what kind of leader that you need to be, you and I are going to find that that is completely different than what the Bible says. The world's view of what makes a good leader is completely different than what the Bible seems to believe. The world basically at this point in reading of the various books in management, they come up, what we hear is this idea that extraordinary people do extraordinary things, and ordinary people do ordinary things. And this is the rationale behind the idea that CEOs and managers have this incredible compensations. That there are so many zeros we can't count them. But yet they believe that they are deserving of that. Why? Because they are extraordinary people. And they deserve extraordinary compensations. And so in just a matter of few years, I remember when I was in college, hearing the idea that somebody became a millionaire, we were just absolutely amazed. Now, people are becoming trillionaires like that, like they just had breakfast. And this concept of this wealth being given and concentrated on few people, and that being accepted as normative thing, is simply because they believe that the extraordinary people deserve extraordinary compensation, because extraordinary people do extraordinary things. And it requires some extraordinary specialties, extraordinary knowledge for people to have value in this society. But if we look at Jesus' strategy of picking his followers, who Jesus turned to leaders, it's not the extraordinary, but it's the ordinary. What's really interesting is that the first time the concept of ordinary was really belittled in writing, in a very well-known, even in the novel. Do you remember which one that was? Most of you probably don't. Where the ordinary was belittled, and then you need to be extraordinary, started with Harry Potter. Do you remember the first chapter? His uncle's house was simply ordinary. They lived ordinary lives. And then within their ordinary living, this extraordinary child was there. And this whole idea, I remember when that book came out, all kinds of Christian community went and complained that because it was belittling the ordinary, and we said ordinary should be okay. But that's what we are facing now, because that simply reflected the business world. Because when we simply say that what happens in the world today is because extraordinary people are doing extraordinary things. But that's not it. What Jesus does is Jesus says that those who experience God's grace are the best ambassadors of message of grace of God. Not the scholars who have studied, not the religious leaders who have been trained. Which is really crazy, but when I was in college, and when I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do things, I think I got more things done than I did after I after I went to seminary. Because when I was in college, I was involved with one of the campus ministries, and I had over 100 people accept Christ with me in my first 2 years in college, before I turned 20. And then I started 2 churches when I was a junior, because I didn't know I was not supposed to do that. But after I went to seminary, until we started the Trojan Church on campus, and until we started a Spanish ministry here, I have not started a separate independent church. 40 years before I was able to start another church. But once I had my seminary education, and once I got ordained, it was simply maintaining what was always there. But when I wasn't supposed to do something, when I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to do something, I actually got more done. Partly because what I was sharing with people was not what I was told was theology. I was not reciting what I learned in the classroom. But what I was able to share with people is what I experienced myself. What I shared was what I've experienced in grace of God. What I was able to tell people is what it felt like to experience an acceptance. That what it felt like to get the message that was contrary to what the world was telling me. The world was telling me that being a short skinny Asian kid wearing glasses, and if you read my newsletter, you know that when I was in high school, a sophomore, I had to gain weight to wrestle 98 pounds, okay, because I was too skinny to even make the lightest weight. And so I was on the wrestling team. Me and the heavyweight were the only 2 people that ate. And everybody else was dieting, trying to make weight. But me, no, I had no problem eating because I didn't even weigh 92 pounds in high school. I didn't fit into the world. And the world said I did, and because when my family came to the United States back in 1970, you have to remember that the immigration law changed. And the new Asian immigration started in the January of 1970. And my family came in May. We were one of the first 1,000 Koreans that came to the United States after the new immigration law. Now, there were Koreans and Asians in San Francisco and Los Angeles, but especially if you go to Midwest, there wasn't anyone. So my world in Wisconsin was white, and they told me I didn't belong. I was too short, I was too skinny, and my hair was too dark, and I spoke with accent, and they said, "You don't belong here. You are not one of us." But yet it was the same skinny Asian kid that was running around the campus at University of Wisconsin, talking to people. And and one of my friends had the picture when I was in college. Well, I happened to be at the beach, and I was talking with 2 guys. You got to remember, during the summers of my college, I weighed about 105 pounds. I'm 5'3". And I'm talking to 2 weightlifting guys who are like 6'4", 6'5", and their shoulders are twice as big, and so they're 2 huge guys, and then with tiny me in the middle. And then I got this thing, and I'm holding it up, and they are reading it with me. And I had both of those guys accept Christ with me on the beach. They came to faith not because somebody argued theology with them, but because some short Asian guy who they didn't think had anything that's common with them, connected with their own sense of not being accepted. And for both of them, their desire to do lifting weights and to gaining all the muscle was partly to become more accepting of others, accepted by others. They thought somehow if they would have more muscles and look more, quote unquote, attractive, or fitting the more stereotype of what would be a good masculine person, then somehow that their insecurities that was inside them would somehow be taken care of. But no matter how much muscles they have built, the hole in their heart, their desire for something beyond this life was not being fulfilled. No matter what they did, and no matter how much other people looked at them and said, boy, well, I want to be like them, they were looking at everybody else and going, I want what they have. Because they have something I don't have inside them. And it just happened to be the short Asian guy that comes along and says, oh, let me tell you what I think I got inside of me. And let me share it with you. It's not that we are extraordinary, that God calls us to follow. It is because precisely that we are ordinary. We have same hole in our hearts. We have same need for God. We have the same emptiness that they felt. That we have experienced same disappointments that they have experienced. We have experienced the same anger that they have experienced. That we have experienced the same rejection that they have experienced. We connect with one another and we connect with other people, not based on great things that we have done, or not based on all the good things that's happening in our lives, but rather we connect with one another by honestly and with vulnerability, sharing the very things within ourselves that says we need God. We need something more than this world. What God is asking of you and I, in biblical language it says to go. What Jesus actually says, come to me. To go, we are told, is to simply to go to God and experience the love of God and be the one continue to share that with wherever that goes and let it overflow from you. What happens in our world is not because we become good and very fluent in telling people about who Jesus is. You know, the more I've studied on how to, there was classes in seminary that teaches you how to do evangelism. Nobody has ever convinced someone else to follow God based on theology, on arguments. But then in the end of the seminary class, the professor had to admit, yeah, we have this class that tells you how to make issues clear. But ultimately, in the end, it is do you connect with the other person? And where you connect with them is in your heart. And connect with them is in the depth of your pain and the depth of your loneliness and the depth of your seeking. And so that's what we do. We go, we share with what we have experienced. The grace of God that come had filled our hearts, filled our needs. And God who was there when we're lonely, God who was there when we're hungry, God who was there for us when we didn't feel that we belonged. That's what Jesus calls us to do. And that's why Jesus simply says to go. We go with a message that simply says, God is in our hearts, and God has given us the love and the joy that we just simply want to let other people know about. That's why God simply wants ordinary people. Ordinary people with ordinary pains. Ordinary people with ordinary experiences. Ordinary people with everyday life struggles, and simply saying, I'm only able to live today because of the grace of God. Let us be the people with that message. Let us go and share ourselves and our pains and let others know how God was there, or how God was there when we needed God. Amen.